Hi, I'm Christina from the Pacific Beach Library. I just want to show you a pattern on how you can do a simple red dress, perhaps a red dress that is not quite as fitted as what Kate Bush wore in her video for the 1978 video for Wuthering Heights, but something that is likening to it. And so again, if you want to make a simple dress with red sleeves that are flowy, a skirt that is flowy, but you don't want to bother with too much patterning and very easy sewing, this might be the easy pattern for you. So let's go ahead and learn how to sew this dress.
Okay, so I thought I'd start by showing you the basic shape of what we're trying to make. We're trying to make a basic dress. It's kind of like a tunic, or as my designer friend who came up with this design said, it's almost like a kirtle, K-I-R-T-L-E, a kirtle. And so basically what we've got is we've got a piece of fabric. Mine is 1 yard in length and it's folded over across the top. So we've got 2 layers of it here, one the front and one the back of your body. We're gonna cut a little tiny semicircle out there for your neck, so your head can go through that. We're gonna cut a line here and a line here. I've got it folded over down the middle, and so what we're gonna see in just a moment is a folded over like quarter of the fabric that we're gonna see, because it's folded over once, so we have front and back, and folded down the middle, so I only have to do these cuts once. So again, a little cut there, and then we're gonna have a cut here for the arm, a cut here for the side, and then this side panel, we're going to go and use that to add on to give extra fullness on this side. So now we see what it is we're trying to make. Envision it upside down, because that's unfortunately how I have the camera set up, sorry. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at it as if we're seeing this side right here. I've got it folded over so that the top fold is here and I've got another fold here. So again, envision this. And so we're gonna cut out is a little bit here of the neck. We're gonna cut out this arm and we're gonna cut out this little bit there. So we're gonna make 3 cuts. Let's go ahead and do that now. What I did, it's a very approximate. I measured out for myself about, actually I refolded a little bit, didn't I? I was thinking that I wanted maybe about 5 inches here and about 4 inches there. Yep, still there. So I'm just gonna cut. I'm just gonna freehand that and make a bit of a circle or a semicircle. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna save this little bit of fabric. We're gonna save this bit of fabric because later on we're gonna turn that into a gusset, a little extra piece we're gonna put into the armpits to have better movement. Don't worry about it, it'll make sense when we do it. Now, the other thing that I did is I drew, and again, this is very approximate, I drew a line about 12 inches in and about 12 inches down. I just drew a tiny little mark, and that's gonna be the armpit of our dress. I'm gonna have it coming down. The angle, I'm not really that worried about it. I just want it to be a little more than just straight. So again, I have a little more fullness in the sleeve. You can use scissors. I just happen to have a rotary cutter because I've been doing another project. And so I thought, why not give it a try? This will be a nice smooth cut if all goes well. All right, so let's go ahead and scooch this up because what I want to do is get the other bit. I want all this on my cutting board. So I'm going to cut it so it's not quite like making a perfect triangle, but you're just going to have a little bit of an edge on the bottom there too. That is going to provide a little bit of extra fullness. We make our handkerchief skirt. Okay, so now I've got my extra piece here ripped out and we are ready to make our little dress. So you can see already, here's that dress shape. And then we have these extra bits that we're going to shape into making extra pieces. Let's see, there's gonna be 2 going on each side of the dress. I'm gonna scooch those to the side right now so we don't have to deal with them. And what I'm gonna keep in mind is that ultimately, when I sew them back onto the gown or onto the tunic or whatever we wanna call it, this long edge is the side that's gonna fit back onto that because it's the right length. I'm gonna sew these 2 edges, the ones that went under the arm. Those 2 we're gonna sew together. Let's do that. Okay, so remember how I said that we're going to save the little bit of fabric that we cut off the neck in order to make our gusset? Let's go and start with that now. I went ahead and just laid it out. I have a cutting board. You don't have to use one of these guys, but if you do, it does make things really convenient. I'm just gonna use it to measure. It doesn't have to, again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer you can get, the better product you're gonna end up with. So that was my little I've now got a section that's 5 inches long that way. And I think, just looking at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think that's gonna be my best spot where I should cut it. Oh wow, that's pretty much 5 inches wide. And then I'm just gonna cut that in half. So I have 2 squares instead of 1 rectangle. Oh, 2 squares now to use as my gussets. Okay, so this is a little tricky, so I wanted to go ahead and explain it to you on the video. Basically, imagine the neckline is over here, and then this is the arm, and this is the side of the dress again, coming down to the hem at the bottom. We have our little square that we cut out for the gusset, and you're going to imagine just setting it on top here from the armpit to this. I've left a little bit of overlap there because we're going to have a little bit for the seam allowance. So I just put a pin one direction and then I pinned the other, so I'm going to sew along this edge, and that'll be the arm. But I'm going to leave this part open because ultimately I'm going to sew the gusset into that, but I don't want to do it just yet because it's a little complicated. We're going to start with just doing that part. But the other thing I need to do to prep the other side for the gusset is I'm going to add on this extra panel. So remember that piece that we cut out? It was basically like this. And then what I do is I sewed along that edge that runs parallel to where the cut for the arm, leaving this long edge that we cut going down from the armpit down to that lower hem. That is what we're going to sew into the dress now. Again, this is the inside out of the dress. We're going to have all of our seams showing. So we want this seam to be here. This is going to come to the armpit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back, and we're just going to open up this piece, the one that we sewed, so that the seam is showing there. And we're just going to pin this all the way down so we can sew this piece. Now, I have a couple wavy cuts in here apparently, but that's okay. What we're going to do, as long as we have it straight enough so that we can sew a straight line, that's what's going to matter. And so let me go ahead and get this pinned because I want to show you the next section, which is where it's going to get tricky again because of the gusset. Okay, so again, one layer of this to the side hem, the side edge of the dress, we're just going to pin it all the way down. That's totally fine. But the other one, we're going to leave space again for that gusset because that's where we're going to sew it in there, creating a little extra space under the arm and also giving a little extra into the chest. So again, if we had, this is our extra little triangular bit that we're sewing in, and this is the other side of that cut, we're going to imagine that the gusset was going on there. And so that's where we can see how far we're not going to sew. So we're going to stop sewing it about here. And then these 2 layers, we're going to sew together. Okay. So I'm going to be sewing 3 seams then, 1 along the arm, 1 all the way up the side, adding in that extra little piece, the triangular piece, and 1 that goes not quite to the top, leaving space for the gusset on one of those side seams and the one underneath the arm. So let's go ahead and get those sewn in, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to do the gusset. And I realized I had my needles the wrong direction, so I had to spin those around my pins, but it's okay, it's okay. Okay, first seam done. Okay, so here we are. We've got our edges all sewn together now. This again, it keeps spinning the orientation, sorry. This is the arm, this is the side that we originally had, and this is with the addition of those triangles that we made, so we're giving extra fullness to the skirt. And now we're gonna figure out how to pin in our gusset. So basically what it is if you were to lift the arm now, you'd have a great big gap there that looks like a square or a diamond shape when it's pulled taut. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to pin this together. Again, we want the seams to be on the outside, so we're gonna pin it kind of inward like this, so that the seams are on the outside. And I'm gonna have it go in one direction, so as I sew, I can kind of just have my machine continue all the way around and have one continuous seam. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna show you how to pin, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks all sewn. So again, what I'm gonna start with is turning it so I can see the edges there. Trying to think which side do I want to sew from. Do I want to sew on this side or do I want to sew on this side? I think I'd rather sew on this side. All right. Then I'm gonna get, so that was one part of the armhole. Now I'm gonna kind of turn and get the other part. I'm not worrying too much if my needles are going in beautifully straight, because really this is just to hold the fabric together. So as I do my stitching, it's holding in place. Now I've come around to the next part. I'm at the start of that side placket, or the side section, to add fullness. Finally, my last section. So yeah, it's kind of, it's an interesting thing. Once you understand how the gusset works, it sounds confusing at first, but basically think of it as like adding in like a little extender section. That's what we're doing. So that way, instead of just having it be, whoops, having it open up there, we're gonna have a little extra fabric there so we have a little more give. All right, so I've just added in that section. So now I have, instead of all those points coming together in one spot, I've added in this extra square, and I'll go ahead and sew around that, and that will be my gusset. And I'll do that on the other side as well. Okay, we're getting into the home stretch now for making our dress. This again is the sleeve. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sew along here. I'm gonna leave about a ½ inch gap in there so I can thread a pin with some elastic through there. I'm not even gonna bother to pin it. You can if you'd like to. We're just gonna sew almost all the way around. I'm gonna leave a gap of about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So I'll be able to easily get in there to thread my elastic through. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and sew a line there so I have like a casing, like a little pocket where I can thread my elastic through. And I'll show you how to do that step too in just a second. Okay, so our last step for threading the elastic through the armhole is I cut a piece of elastic that was going to fit loosely around my wrist. I want to stretch out enough so I can put it over my hand, but I want it to move loosely on my wrist. If you want yours tighter, feel free to cut it shorter. What I like to do too is I'm threading elastic through something is I use a safety pin to thread it through one side so I can use that to pull. And then the other side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread through that, and I'm actually going to just pin it to the fabric outside of where I want it to be. So that way I won't accidentally tug it through too much and pull it all the way through. I want to stay on the outside of the little hole, the little gap that I left. So now I'm just gonna thread it through. And again, I was kind of big how I left the hole in this one. This fabric is really thin, it's a chiffon, so it goes through very easily. I mean, it bunches up nicely. But you know, if you had a thicker fabric, you might not be able to bunch it up as tightly as I am with this one. Just threading it through. And then at the end, you can decide whether you want to just knot it or whether you'd like to sew the end together. You can do, again, either. This is a very simple costume, so I'll probably just knot it. But you know, if I was doing something a little more permanent for myself, I might want to knot it, or sorry, sew the end together instead. But yeah, I think today I'm just gonna knot it. So now I've got my pulled end through. Here's my initial side that I had pinned down to the dress so I didn't get it lost inside. Just gonna bring those both out, untie that. And now I'm just gonna knot my two ends together. Oh, dear me, let's try that again. Oh, both sides pull through. There we go. So now I've got my end knotted. I'm just gonna pull it through. If I want to, I can go ahead and sew that last like inch or so shut. I actually don't think it's gonna show, so I may not bother, but if you'd like to, you can. Maybe I will, it's just gonna bother me a little bit. If you wanna do it, when you sew that, you can either hand sew it, or if you put it through the machine, just be sure to pull it straight at that point so you won't be sewing into the elastic, but yeah, it bunches up so much, I don't think it'll be very obvious. All right, so now I'm gonna go and thread the other one and almost ready to wear. Yay!
Okay, so now you can see how the finished thing looks. Again, it's a very simple outfit. The idea is we wanted it to be something to give you flexibility to move and to lift. You can see how the gusset gives it that little extra fabric there so you can lift up. I have an extra little bit of black fabric I'm just gonna use to create a little sash or belt. Again, if you look at the video with Kate Bush, her outfit looks very different from this one, but it's all that idea of having something red, something flowy. I should have red pants or leggings under this, but I have black. Just that's what I have today. But so if you want to make something like this, this would be an easy pattern. Again, not exactly like Kate Bush, but it does have the flowing sleeves. It does have the kind of handkerchiefy looking or jagged looking bottoms. If you want to actually cut jagged edges on the bottom, you could do that too. But yeah, it does the job. It's simple, it's fun, and who knows, maybe we'll make a few more videos about other options you can do for costuming. The other option, of course, would just be buy a dress. That would totally work too. But if you want to feel crafty and you want to go and make something, this is an option for you. One last thing too, I could recommend, I think if I was doing it again, I would probably give myself an extra inch or two of elastic, so that way, as I lift my arms up, it would fall back down again toward closer to my wrists. So leave it a little looser, and I think I would cut the hole for the neck a little smaller so it wasn't quite as big. But either way, especially if you use a relatively sheer fabric like this, you're wearing something underneath. So even if the neck hole is really big, you're not gonna show anything bad. So very good. Thank you for sewing with me. I hope you enjoy this, and see you next time.